Fuzz Bat Gigs Podcast, episode number 11. And you have just heard Though You Are Gone, I Still Often Walk With You by Silver Mount Zion, and As Above, So Below by Maud The Moth. And we're here with Maud The Moth, aka Amaya. I know we're speaking a bit earlier, but how are you today?
I'm doing great, recovering from the sun, which is always a very unknown experience, to be outside into the world rather than like inside of my house hiding away.
It sounds awfully mystic code for I've been outside.
Sounds what?
Awfully mystic code for I've been outside. Like it sounds like it's like a mystic's way of saying I've been outside. Like if you ask like a mystic or like a witch or a wizard, like where have you been today? They wouldn't just say outside. They would say something along the lines of that to like.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Life is pretty boring, so it's always good to like spice it up a bit.
That's fair. Okay, so I guess right. So here's the first question, which I like to call the career counselor at school question, the one that everybody dreads, is so how would you describe? Well, what is Maud the Moth, and how would you describe it, and what does it kind of represent?
Actually, it's a pretty good question, and I think it's kind of like the reply has kind of changed throughout the years because I wasn't very sure myself. I always used to say like, oh, it was like my solo personal project that I always had, like even when I was a child, like because I was really into writing music from a very, very early age. But now I think actually I would say that it's like my artistic career. It's not even like, I wouldn't even consider it a band or a music project. It is because it's the way that it's evolved and moved. It's always the thing that it's had in common is that it's always been really, really, really personal to me. So in a way, it just kind of represents my essence, my artistic creative essence, I think.
That's quite a good answer, actually. Like, because you could have gotten away with, because I saw your Bandcamp, it just says Maud the Moth is an insect.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you said that, I'd have been like, well, I can't question that, but that's what the Bandcamp says. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I come from an age, I think, where like information on the bands that I liked wasn't readily available. And it added to like mystique, and like it added to, even from like an artistic point of view, like a lot of things just weren't imposed because you didn't know about them. And I think I am a pretty extroverted person. Like if you ask me things, I'll just tell you all about it. But I don't really like to do it online. I think it's like much nicer. It's like, well, nobody's asked me, so I'm not gonna like write like an essay about something. So yeah, I think it encapsulates that kind of sense, that kind of essence, that is like kind of like, it doesn't have a species and it doesn't have a gender and it doesn't have a anything, it's just a creature. It's just kind of it doesn't even have like a conscious, it's like, and I see the way that I process my creation very much like that, like something like this space where I'm not very aware of things.
I like that. That's good because it's just like a simple line, but like hearing a lot extra meaning that's quite cool. And I guess it means it's more up to for folk to interpret when they listen to the music, or in pre-COVID times when they would see you live, it leaves more interpretation for what it represents to other people, I guess, which is a cool way of doing it. But since it's just an insect, you're kind of like, oh, that's cool. Like, what does that sound like? What does that sound like though? Whereas sometimes if there's descriptions of things, you maybe sometimes get expectations in your head, so I can see what you're going for there, I guess.
Yeah, cool.
Which is cool, but sometimes people write essays and they include like all these quotes from press and stuff in their bios, and like I don't know, like so it's maybe just.
I mean, I have that as well, but
is that below
it's
it?
like that's the press kit type, but you have to do like press kits and shit. Like people ask you for that stuff, but then that's like for people who ask for it, like someone who just wants to listen music. I think like it shouldn't matter, if. I don't know if you have like an award or not, or like all that matters is if you listen to something and if it means something to you, and you can connect with it. And at least to me, that's what's important,
Exactly. It's important to draw your own interpretations from things as well, because as I mentioned in the episode before this, no two people hear music the same way. So someone's having like, I don't know, something basic for folk to see, and then they can then draw their own ideas and everything from it is a good way to do it. It's meant, music's an expression of one person, but how someone interprets that is, I guess, an expression of their own ears in a way, I guess. So I don't know. I'm just trying.
Yeah.
I'm cautious if what I'm saying makes sense there, but I think it does. So
No, it does. It does. It's actually, I mean, it kind of like, I guess I could like continue that on that line and like just talk for a lot of time. I'm just trying to like watch myself, because if I start, I just like start like rambling on, and I'll be like speaking for 5 hours. But yeah, I think like the perception of something, of not just of an art piece or a song or a picture or whatever. I don't think that it's only about like it has to be like a dialogue, right? So a lot of it is what the person who's created has put into it, but a lot of great part of like the raison d'etre of a piece is the person who's watching it or listening to it. And you listen to things with your own personal background, and that's also like part of, and that's going to be different for each person.
Exactly, because music reminds folk of certain times in their life, and art does as well. All forms of art do, and everything as well. So the people will have personal connections to music based off of like that, or what it means to them and stuff as well. And then sometimes it can be what the creator intended. Other times it can be completely different, and that's part of the beauty of it, I suppose. And that was part of the beauty of live music as well, because that brought it brought folk together, and folk could interpret it together and have shared experiences of that. But but I'm gonna be careful before this becomes too depressing too early. So. So that's probably a good point to go to the next one. So I was going to say, so Maud The Moth, is that the first musical project you were involved with, or did you play in bands or do stuff under a different name before you were doing Maud The Moth, or?
Yeah, so I've been playing music my whole life that I can remember. I think I started playing the piano at like 5 or something like that, and I always really liked just writing stuff and even like recording it. My dad had like one of these like old hi-fi systems. I could have like several tape things, so you could record in one and then like use the other one to kind of like mix another thing on. So I would do like really, really terrible demos. And then at some point I also like got like Cool Edit Pro on the computer, and I was like, oh my God, the world, the possibilities. So I've just really, really always been super interested in like writing music, and of course like in school, like as soon as like bands became a thing, I was like always part of like school band. And like I think like the main project I had was a band called This Side. Terrible name, sorry, just one word.
That's
even worse.
This Side.
Yeah. I think this is really, to be honest, I didn't choose the name. I arrived in the band, the name was there and they made it very clear that I was just going to go sing some songs. And I was like, yes, we will see, my friend, if I won't.
It sounds either like that would be some early noughties new metal band, or it sounds like that, or it sounds like it would be some Nine Inch Nails ripoff. That's what This Side sounds like to me, like from the name.
It was very much like the evolution of like some teenage band without very much direction or form. Initially it was just kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, like female fronted metal, like just pretty, I mean, I always like when I was in school and stuff, I liked grunge. And then I naturally evolved into more like maybe like stonery or doomy stuff. I quite like from that era as well. Like I quite liked Tool, so I guess like more progressive stuff. But the band was just basically everybody liked something different. Like our bass player was like obsessed with nu metal, so everybody was like really different. Our drummer like really liked jazz as well. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, it was just like this salad of things, that but it was really, really great fun. And I got to like, I'm still like good friends with them. We recorded one album that was like relatively professionally made. And and we just played a lot. We toured in Spain a lot. and it was really like, you know, kind of my ground, because before that I had other bands as well, where I had done like a little bit of recording or like playing little festivals and so on locally, but it just didn't have the whole like trying to develop a personality type of thing, you know. I mean, I don't think we achieved it, but the intention was there.
That was the closest you got in the early days.
Yeah.
It's because it's sometimes always funny hearing about people's like backgrounds and stuff and things, because some of folk are like, oh yeah, I was doing like a few things or and stuff, and other folk but I don't know, just to hear somebody like, oh, I was in this band, but like the name, man, oh my god, the name just like instantly just like start with like, and then I didn't choose it, just like try to like
yeah, that's me.
make it clear what your role was with it, and also like just distance for distance.
To be fair, I mean, because I like writing so much, I ended up writing quite a lot of music for them. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a trade-off in a band, right? That you're not in complete creative control, which is why I went solo. Because yeah. But yeah, I think I am like, I have like very strong opinions, creatively speaking, and obviously it's like not very easy to work with someone like that. I'm aware of it. It's just because I care so much about music. Like I don't do it just for fun. I mean, I can do music just for fun, but if I'm doing it as a creative project that I'm like involved in, because I get so emotionally involved in it, and to me it's like part of my personality, you know, like it kind of reflects on me as well. So I think I tend to be quite controlling with that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Cause a band always represents like the sum of it, or it should represent like the sum of like its parts and everything. Like, you know, and and sometimes like that can maybe be hard to get everyone. So, you know, all bands is great when it always represents everybody's personalities and energies together, and you vibe well, and it's great. But I guess sometimes if you don't have the same goals or things in mind, or like there's not a way of that aligning, then it can fail to represent what it is, because music should be an expression of you or part of you that within things, depending on context you're doing. So solo is so bare, it's like solo is like that's an expression of you directly. So there is a total difference in everything. So I guess if there's quite a strong you within there, and then you want it all to be there, then like you'd have to go solo, I suppose. That would make sense. So
yeah, so here we are now.
So when did you start playing music under the name Maud The Moth?
So 2010, I think, was like officially when I played my first gig, which wasn't really a gig, but when I first started, like, you know, playing, and I had like more solid songs put together, because before that I would just write songs either on piano or guitar, and the ones that were like they interested the band that I was there at the moment at that time, we would develop as a song for the band. And then others I would just keep, like bedroom project type of thing. And then after we completely disbanded, then after that I started like just everything I wrote was for Maud The Moth. I mean, also from the things that I write, I think maybe like 10% makes it into the actual world. So but that's another story.
So there's loads of like abandoned projects lying around.
Yeah.
Maybe one day you can start a series of unreleased projects and like put them out. So yeah, you were still living in Spain, were you, when you started doing Maud The Moth?
Yeah.
Because that makes sense. Because when I was looking at the albums, actually, I see that your first album was Home Futile Home, and I see that was and I noticed that was recorded in Madrid.
Yeah.
Estudio Uno.
Yeah.
Yeah, have I said that right? I'm cautious of like cautious of all my pronunciations. My Spanish is awful. And it was Pablo Pulido or so.
Pablo Pulido.
Pulido that produced, mixed and mastered that. The
it's a bit like a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is a bit like I don't know what his parents thinking when they named him. Like, but you know, it's a cool name. It's a cool name. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool name. But you're right. When did they think about the tongue twister thing? It's like there was a kid in my school who was called John Johnson. Like sometimes you're kind of like, do people like say the names out loud before they choose these things sometimes, or?
Yeah,
I'm I'm only funny. I'm sure he's a loving. I don't mean to go after someone's name, but sometimes these things are just funny. So
maybe they're just like rolling the baby name dice, or...
it's like I don't know. There's what is it? Oh, it's like the episode of South Park where I think it goes like the stock exchange or something, and then to determine what stuff's worth, there's just these guys and they cut the head off a chicken and then it just like runs around and whatever, and then what depends on what lands.
I think I've seen that. Yeah. Amazing.
Stan tries to return like I don't know, it's some Margaritaville maker thing, and he sees that's how it works. It just leaves.
Yeah, pretty much.
So as I said, yes. So I see that was recorded. I see that was 2011. That was recorded. So that was the first album. So was that the first? So obviously you said that stuff gets recorded and doesn't get put out and stuff. Was that the first one? Was that the first like full album that you recorded? Or did you recorded stuff before and then just not put it
out? Well, for Maud The Moth, I think. Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the first thing. The initial stuff was maybe just like demos and so on that I had in tapes in my parents' house. And they all went in the bin, apparently, during a house clean at some point. Had a very lengthy conversation with my mother about it. But it's all gone, probably for the best, to be honest. I can now remember it with loving care, and some form of melancholy rather than like utter rage and disgust for myself.
You can pretend there was a hidden masterpiece.
Exactly.
That was lost to time.
Oh no, the world will never know.
The world will never hear. I'll never hear my best work.
Yeah. So there we go. That was me.
Yeah, so that was the first one. So what was recording there? What was your experience recording there like? Because I noticed that album as well. Also talk about that as well. Like I noticed because I was more familiar with your later stuff. So when I went back and listened to that, it was kind of interesting because I noticed it was more like I don't know, it was more jazzy and like more elements of baroque pop, and I don't know, it was much lighter in tone as well. It seemed happier in a lot of ways than like
I think it's I don't think it was actually happier, but I think it was like definitely more masked stuff, like a lot of it was just kind of this more like angsty vibe, or more just completely like I was like more disconnected, I think, from like in my internal diatribe. But I mean the studio, that's where I recorded the first album with this band that I had, and Pablo Pulido, he was a sound engineer there, and he actually played with my rock band we did a couple of little tours, and he played guitar with us, and so he recorded the album with us, and it's now it's kind of the studio has moved location. But the studio was like amazing. It was like the studio for Sony in Madrid. And I don't know if you know Pedro Almodóvar, the filmmaker. He's made a bunch of, I'm sure you've watched some films by him. He's really famous. But it's a studio that had like a symphonic recording room, and it had like a audio for film as well. Like it had some mixing desks that were specifically for video editing and like film and music and film. So it was like full on, like they had like 2 massive solid state Logic desks. The piano they had there was like, I mean, it had been used to record like albums that are, like masterpieces of like Spanish music, like Camarón, who's like it's like a flamenco singer that like, well, he has a pretty twisted story, but anyway, he recorded on that fucking piano, so yeah, it was like pretty full on. I was like really, really lucky to be able to record there. I guess, I don't know, I had been doing music my whole life, and I knew a bunch of people there, so it was also part of like, my contacts. So
it's a pretty big claim to fame to make for your first solo album.
I
recorded it in this place, man. Like,
it was amazing, and yeah, back to what you were saying artistically. I mean, I feel like super disconnected from all of those songs. I never play them live anymore. and I find them quite embarrassing.
I noticed there was a couple of songs on it. I'm sure what the names of them. I did write them down. There were a couple that I thought did hint at what you were to do later, but I can't remember ones they were. I'm sure there were a couple that I. Yeah, there was a couple. Was it June and As If in the Hall of Trust? Like
yeah.
When I was listening to it, I was like, when I heard those ones, I was like, well, that sounds more like what she does kind of now. Whereas everything else was quite was definitely different. There was definitely more like, I don't know, there was like the double bass kind of jazz stuff on some of it. Like the one that we're going to play later, Absinthe, My Love. I quite like that one because it was kind of different from stuff like that's kind of what to do. I was like, I could have picked one of the ones that sounds more like what we do now, but I was like,
I think as well, like, I mean, if it had just been a piano and voice album, maybe it would have been more similar to the stuff that I am doing now or how things have evolved. But because I still had that kind of like lingering, I want a band type of thing. And the place where I rehearsed, there were like lots of jazz bands. The guy who played double bass there, he was like a guy who was like in the studio. He kind of like taught like jazz bass there. And the drummer as well was like some guy who he's this American producer. And he was in my rehearsal space and they were like, okay, cool. Let's like arrange your songs, you know? And I guess I was just at the beginning, I didn't really know where things were going very well, aesthetically, you know, I just focused on writing the songs and I wasn't that concerned about the actual production of the album. So yeah, definitely like the production, I think it's like a bit all over the place. Not the actual work from the producer, you know, like obviously like he it was just more like it wasn't like pre-produced or there was no pre-production phase. It was just kind of going in the studio, recording the stuff that we'd rehearsed in the recording space, and that was pretty much it, you know. It wasn't like lots of thought put into it.
That does make sense actually, just what you were saying there, because I did kind of because I assumed maybe it's just that's what you were going for with earlier, but no, like hearing that there's an influence of the musicians that were there and the sort of vibes that that does make a lot of sense as to why it would come out sounding more jazzy and
I think one of the best things that has happened to me artistically is that I have become a bit more there's this song How to Say No which just basically illustrates it, you know. What's the word I'm looking for, when you state your borders, when you state your like I can't think of the word.
Assertive.
Assertive, yeah.
You're more like,
yeah,
I want this is what I like.
And
I don't want to do this.
It's definitely like a horrible thing that nobody wants to do, you know. If you're in a band, you just don't want to be the bad guy, you know. You want to like let people, especially if they're just like playing in your album for free, like was definitely the case in the first album. You want people to like be completely free and contribute the way they can. But I think that's quite detrimental to the artistic vision, which, I mean, having said that, in this first album, it wasn't very clear. I didn't really know very well what I was aiming for, you know. But it is true that in time, I've become more assertive. And I think that's like directly related to like the quality artistically, the coherence at least, you know, like of the finished album and so on.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense because you could definitely hear that later on, because it's said how the later two albums definitely do like sound that there's definitely more of like they've got a lot more in common. I'd say there's more of a
definitely I agree.
You know, this is the Maud The Moth kind of sound, I suppose, and then even I guess like which we'll come to later, the other things you kind of do as well, like I guess this album kind of does feel quite different from everything else. I guess of your stuff that I've listened to, it does feel quite different, but that's. Yeah, but you've always explained why that is. So there you go. That's interesting information. I also thought it was kind of funny as well, actually. Like, we're still talking about this one. You had a song on that album called "You Go Girl." That's I mean, with something like, you know, this sort of bouncy kind of like positive kind of energy, because it's like I just can't see that. I just can't see that on like, you know, like I don't know, Inner Wastelands or Orphany.
Actually, I have a big issue with that song, with "You Go Girl," because it's actually, I think most people misunderstand it. Good for me, like they misunderstand it, because it's a song that was written out of like just being really, really angry and really pissed off. And I don't think that it's like something that I condone at all now, you know. that kind of like that general attitude of just being like just really resentful, you know. I don't think it's something that brings anything good. So it was kind of a bit that song is like kind of taking pride in suffering, you know.
Yeah, as I say, did not get that from it. Like,
Yeah. But I mean,
it's
it's actually a song that's like very, at that time I was really I mean, I still am, but at that time I was super influenced by Tori Amos. And one of the things that I really like about her is this kind of complete mismatch between what she's singing about and the mood of the song. So the idea, the mismatch between the intention and the sound of the song in itself was part of that kind of like ultra cynicism, you know. It's a really cynical song, and like really hurt and really angry song, you know, but in a kind of like just making it seem like happy and stuff. I don't know how better to describe it.
I guess I guess you've done that then, because it seems happy, I guess. So there you go. That's an interesting sort of way of writing a song and stuff, I suppose. Like, you know, I guess, yeah, because obviously often songs kind of like there is sort of like read between the lines with certain lyrics and stuff, or what they mean. But I guess that's a very kind of thing of like saying, I guess, the opposite of what the music suggests, which is kind of
exactly. And I think it's
yin and yang effectively in some ways with it, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's like a really problematic song, actually, and I have actually considered taking it down, but then I don't know. I was like talking to friends, and they were like, you know, like this is part of your trajectory as well, and I guess it helps me keep perspective of. So I mean, I'm happy. This is the first time anybody's asked about that, and I'm happy that I get to talk about it, because I get to like state, you know, my opinion. It's
an exclusive. You heard it here first.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's exciting.
It's actually really funny because I get interviewed by lots of Spanish people and by British people. So Spanish people perceive certain things in the music, and British people perceive other things in the music. You know, again, going back to not just the background and the type of music each country has been like more subjected to, like some styles are more popular in different countries, but also like the attention to the lyrics, you know, that's also pretty significant something word that starts with
significant makes sense. A significant difference in interpretation, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So so just to one more thing about that sort of period of I guess creating would be to say, so you mentioned the first gig you did would have been 2010. So that was also before you recorded that. Where was the first gig? What was that like? Or were you playing with people then, or was it completely solo the first?
Yeah, I started completely solo, and I think the first gig I did was like in my living room with my housemate, and we just invited some people over.
That's cool.
And I did the first live stream before live streaming was like, I was gonna say cool, but it's never been cool. It was before live stream was forceful.
Oh man, like that's such a hipster thing to say. Like,
I
love
know,
as well.
I
did a live stream gig before live stream gigs were cool, man. Like,
but
that street cred there, man.
I know. So yeah, like it was like through, man, it must have been like fucking Messenger or something, that I had this friend. He was in Seville in the south of Spain, and he has a venue that I was like, oh look, I'll show you my new project. And then I had the laptop there, and I think he managed to see like half of the first song or something like that. So internet hasn't got much better, you know. We haven't got much further in the last in the last 10 years.
Clearly not. So like, you know, we still you still can't play with it's still struggling to play with people like over like, you know, like these programs and stuff. So, you know, unless you're playing free improv, which works great. Other things. So you think if you could do that then, you know, 2010, you'd think stuff would be better now for the stuff like that, but I guess it isn't. Or you think like stuff would maybe stream at higher quality, but phones have gotten a bit better, but like not for. But live streams are always better if you pre-record it and then you like put the quality is always better if you pre-record it. I noticed.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, so that was the first gig, and then I think very soon after that, I started playing in like a couple of like small venues in Madrid, mostly on my own. I just had a very, very crappy keyboard that my housemate bought for me. She bought me my first keyboard, and
Sounds like a
then
good
I paid
housemate,
her.
letting you have a gig and buying you a
In
keyboard.
a,
It's like...
she's like, she was my really close friend from school, so we moved together, and yeah, she supported me so much when I was just getting started. So yeah, kudos to her.
Sounds like she put up with quite a bit, like then, like but maybe she. It sounds like she loved it. She was like buying you a keyboard, and sounds like she was quite encouraging with the sounds.
It was like, yeah, it meant so much to me, to be honest, because just like that was really important to me. And the fact that, I mean, she wasn't like doing really, really well by any means. You know, we moved into this flat that didn't even have a floor. I'm not gonna go into details about, but it didn't have a floor. And she was working as a like junior architect, and I was freelancing like engineering jobs. And like then we would have like this hunter gatherer approach to getting jobs, which would be like, let's see what we can get, sticking posters on the street or designing. I remember we made this model for this like architect studio, and we were just like there at like 24 hours of work, just like cutting bits out of. It was pretty crazy. And she really helped me out. So
I sounds intense. Good bonding activity as well. Like
yeah,
like friends who build architectural models together stay friends, don't they? So...
Definitely, yeah.
That's fair. Sorry, I'm still loving that live streams before they were cool thing. That's a beautiful moment. Yeah, so right, so moving further along with recording stuff. So the next album was almost 4 years later that came out. That was Inner Wastelands that we mentioned briefly earlier. But I noticed you recorded that in 2014. It says, and that was swapping countries. I see that was in CrispinSound in Gothenburg.
Mm-hmm.
So Sweden.
Yeah. I actually recorded my second album twice, which is something that I do not recommend. Like 0 out of 10.
I saw there was a couple of demos up for that album as well, like online as well. So I don't know if that was in prep for recording it or whatever. Like,
that was
well,
yeah. So those I made on my own at home with like a keyboard. But then I actually went and recorded like full pianos in the Turner Sims in Southampton, which was like it's very similar to the piano that I recorded in Orfneyen, which was the university grand piano. Always capitalizing on my side research career for my true personal goal, which is making music.
He's in all your connections and opportunities. I see for more opportunities.
Exactly.
So, it's fine. So it's
so
very,
I recorded.
It's very savvy, is what to say. It's very like sort of like how can I use all this to my advantage? Let's do that. Like I'm impressed. So
it's more out of survival and need, you know. I don't know if it's very savvy, but it's like I don't have any other options. So yeah, I recorded it there with like a friend who was doing a PhD in Southampton. And man, we just worked our asses off to get those pianos tracked and stuff. And then I tried to record the vocals, and the vocals just like didn't work at all. We recorded in like, again, because I was like so skint at that time, like it just genuinely, I was like working in pubs and finishing my masters and like just mega skint. So I recorded the vocals with some really nice guys that were like studying audio production in the university there. But there was like so many problems with the exporting and so on. So I ended up not being able to use it. And then I was trying to find someone to mix it. And I had been on tour with this amazing duo from Gothenburg, House of Trees. And I mean, apart from like insanely talented musicians, they were just the nicest people. And I listened to their music, obviously, and I really liked the production. I think at that time I was aiming for something a bit more crossovery, electronic-y, effect pedal type of thing. but as a very influential person, I really like this stuff, and I kind of wanted to do, like, I guess I kind of wanted to go with what they had done as well. Like, they recommended that. So I went to record it when I had already moved to Edinburgh. So I took the plane from here and I flew to Gothenburg, and it was like, it was amazing. Like, to be honest, like, this guy has like a church in the middle of the countryside, and I would just go every morning in the studio. He had like a very, very battered piano there, and we basically re-recorded the whole album again. And then he had some session musicians there for violins and cellos. Cello. And the guy from House of Trees played double bass. I think it was in Crossbows. And and Crispin played drums as well. So it was more like kind of more minimal arrangement where the songs needed the arrangement, that it happened, rather than like the whole like full band approach that I'd done in the other album.
That sounds like a really cool experience, recording like a church in the countryside.
It was
like,
amazing.
That sounds lovely. Like, like even just if you went there just like for like a day for fun, like in the recording, that would be like really cool. Like,
so. there were these cows like just next to the church, and the church had like all of these really big windows. And I would go play the piano in the morning, and like all the cows would like line in the windows, and they'd be like checking it out. They really liked it.
Must have been
so cute, man.
It must have been amazing. They're not. I think cows are cute, but they're not as cute as cows in general. They're not as cute as the Highland coos in Scotland. I think Highland coos are the cutest kind of cow. So
yeah, they are pretty. They're pretty good.
And I guess I identify with them because they've also got like all this like
emo fringe
hair that gets in their face and stuff. Like. And they're just just having a nice time, I guess. So. But yeah, with the music and stuff as well. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting you said that with the musicians, because I did think, like, when I was listening to like as well, that it's the arrangements definitely are a bit sparser in general, but it works better for the songs, I think, because there's a definite obvious progression from the last album onto that, and it sounds like that was also like when you were more going, but this is what I want to sound like, and actually like achieving that goal.
Yeah, working with Crispin was amazing. He does well, he's done a lot of stuff. Actually, when he was really young, he was in Edinburgh being a sound engineer for the Tattoo. So I mean, he got he cashed in all of his hours, all of his techie hours. And but then now he's like the sound engineer for Little Dragon Live. So he goes on tour with them. I don't know if you know that band.
I don't, but I like the name. That sounds amazing.
They're really, really good. They are like, I don't really know how to describe them, like trip hop, but like more jazzy.
It's gonna be interesting.
Really interesting.
I need to give them a listen later.
Yeah, their singer is like amazing. Like, she's got like so much personality. Like, her voice is like really unique. And they're also incredible because they're a band that have been together since high school, and they've become super famous. Like, they did like a world tour with Gorillaz.
Right.
Yeah, and they've done a bunch of like KEXP featured concerts as well. They're actually really famous.
And even look, there's always a lot of good stuff on the KEXP sessions.
I love it.
There's loads of good stuff on those. So
yeah, I really, really love that radio station. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So Crispin, like, he had like a lot of experience, and also he's like really creative. We did a lot of like prepared piano stuff together, and we did a lot of like sound processing, and we just geeked about music so much. It was just like such a the ideal scenario to record an album where you're like fully submerged in the album, like you just wake up and you're working on it, and then you stop, but you're like still listening to music, and then you go to sleep thinking about it, and wake up and it's just you're really submerged in it. And I love recording so much. I mean, that's like my favorite part of making music, when I'm actually creating the sound piece. Like, I obviously like playing live as well, but I think I get really stressed, and it's not until I've played like at least 4 or 5 gigs in a row that I start actually enjoying it. But yeah, the part of where I'm in the studio just geeking out with stuff and making weird noises, I'm like, oh yes, living for this.
it's interesting to hear as well, because like playing live is an amazing experience. But yeah, I think some people do prefer the creative aspect of it. So it's like both aspects are great, but it's interesting sometimes hearing what people prefer, how they do them. But I guess you got a lot of time to experiment and create. The creative process must be like, could be. One of the things I like about the creative process is when you're kind of like, I don't know, you have stuff, the songs make sense on their own, but then put them together and making it this like collective creative piece, like, and assembling it. Like, that's what I love about the creative process, because live's different. So you're playing the songs and there's an energy, you're vibing, but like off of yourself, and if it's a band with bandmates and with people. But I don't know, the creative aspect, there's definitely like, yeah, but it's kind of cool thing about what's, I guess there's a big sonic kind of thing of like, well, these songs work on their own, but they also work together, and I don't know, and try to say something big. And yeah, that's maybe something that's quite exciting, I find, about the creative process anyway. But I would say, because I would say that with that album, that like yeah, it does, there's a much more, I guess, collective focus with it. Home Feed to Home kind of jumps in tones and stuff, like there's moments that sound like what you wanted to do, and there's other bits was jazzy, and there's things that's, it's got this range going on with it, whereas Inner Wastelands, like it's all there's a collective kind of sound running through the songs, which is nice. It kind of ties it together nicer, like yeah, I think anyway. And I think there's one song, was it? I can't remember what it is. There's a couple of shorter interludes. I can't remember what it is. There's a really short interlude one that kind of just goes straight to the next song. And like, if you didn't know that was two different songs, then like it would just work.
Yeah.
There's one, I think. So stuff like that's cool.
Cool.
What was the way to say about that? Yeah, because you mentioned that song Crossbows. I almost picked Crossbows to play because I thought that's quite a cool song, but I went with other ones instead. But like, I was listening to that, I was like, that's a cool one. But I went with Empires and then that Ignis Fatus instead. But Crossbows was a cool one. I really like, there was cool harmonies and stuff on Crossbows. I thought was really nice. So
the BBC liked that one.
Did they? Was that played on BBC Introducing? Was it?
I think it was on BBC Introducing. It got played on the BBC. I don't know which program. I think it was the Introducing. Yeah.
But there you go. Another claim to
the first and last.
Yeah, because the thing with them I find is I submit to them recently, and they do this thing where they're like, you sign this agreement thing, and then they're kind of like, oh, we, just because someone listens to your music doesn't mean it will get played. And then you get this email, and they're like, someone at the team has listened to your music, and you're like, okay, that's great, but like, I don't really like need to know. Like, tell me if you're gonna play it, or like, it's just, it's weird. It's a weird way of wording it with like.
I think it's like a really amazing tool that like UK bands have. That thing is like so readily available to literally anybody, but then at the same time it can be very frustrating because there's just so many bands, and I have found in the last years that they are like really looking for a specific sound, not so much in the style, but I'd say more in the production. And it is very telling, like when you hear like the finished, like the selected tracks, like that there's like this very, very common vibe to all of them. So yeah, it's just not really catering to all music interests, I say, like actually there was one song from Orphanage that was kind of played in BBC Introducing, but it was a parallel playlist they do, which is called Eclectic Picks. So for example, if you play any kind of weird music, or it's a bit more avant-garde, or it doesn't, basically if it doesn't have a hook and a chorus, then you're in the eclectic picks. If it's got more, it's more about the atmosphere. And of course, like another thing that I find just like terrible is like the like metal bands. Where do metal bands go? There's like there's no actual like main music platform for them to kind of leave the underground. They're just constantly condemned to being in like that unseen space. That's just what
I suppose, yeah, because with metal, like a lot of the kind of bigger metal act stuff, like will get played on things like, I guess Kerrang Radio is not a thing anymore, isn't it? Like they would have played that sort of stuff, and then Planet Rock play a lot of the bigger stuff. But Planet Rock are more interested in like your more classic kind of metal and stuff. I don't think, like
but for the BBC to not have like something dedicated, I think I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm like just being really like not knowing, but I don't think there's like dedicated metal programs. And I don't know. I mean, the metal is such a big thing in the UK. I find it like, even in Spain, we have like dedicated, we have like the Spanish BBC is like Radio Nacional de España.
Sorry, if anyone's Spanish or someone who speaks Spanish is listening, they'll be like, "Oh yes, that's."
if you're British, probably sounded like. So anyway,
it sounds like Animal from the Muppets now is what that sounds like. So.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, play drums.
Yeah, but in the Spanish national radio, there's actually a couple, and there has always been like that's how I actually got into rock and metal as a teenager, because my parents like would never play rock and metal in my house. Like that was just not a thing. And I'm an only child, so I didn't have any older siblings, you know, to kind of like but yeah, there were all these programs, and they would like, I would just listen to the radio, and I was just getting, you know, I would like be how do you say, oh shit, my brain's not working, exposed. Yeah, you just get exposed to all these sounds, you know, and it's like I don't see that in the mainstream UK radio. I think maybe like some rock things, like Idols. I guess Idols are pretty popular, and they're actually pretty out there.
They pulled up quite a bit. Yeah, they're much more on the punker kind of stuff. With Idols, but they've really blown up. Like I think they've only put out like
they're really good,
like a few albums or something, and they're quite popular.
Yeah.
Like so I guess like some people do well from them. I mean, there's plenty of publications and stuff. Like I mean, you've got Metal Hammer, which is pretty dedicated to like
of course, yeah.
Publication wise, I think the UK is quite good for that sort of stuff, I'd say. But yeah, I guess with the radio, you're right. I guess because I think of metal that's played on the radio, and it is the more bigger stations that I would say. So I guess it's the same chances, I guess, as anything. I mean, they could submit stuff to introducing, but then will they play that? Radio 6 could have played a lot of like kind of like, you know, they play a lot of good stuff. Like they play kind of like, but sometimes I guess because exactly they play like Idols and stuff like and things and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any like, I guess, like kind of smaller, I guess, shows dedicated to the more heavier stuff. I mean, the only chance, I guess, the same chance anything experimental, because I guess a lot of more experimental, wackier stuff, like whether it's, I guess, punk or, you're right, or even like what you were saying there with like the choruses and stuff. There's less things that you think I could all kind of gets lumped. A lot of underground stuff all kind of gets lumped together in one way rather than spig out. So that's the thing. It's an interesting thing I think about, I suppose, because you're right, because there's loads of like. Yeah, like underground. There's definitely like a lot of underground, like, you know, like heavier acts kicking around and stuff for sure. There's loads of cool music though. Like it's not just that. There's could go on for ages about like all the different underground scenes that exist that don't get like the look-ins that they should and stuff and everything. It's like when people say there's no music scene in Edinburgh. Some people do say that, which is rubbish, because there's like, you know, so much good shit like happening here.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and yeah, I say here. I mean, yeah, the stuff still is happening, but like obviously more before the weird times we're in. So
it'll come back.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like but I think this Freedom Day is going to delay it a bit. So if I can go to a gig in Scotland before the year's over, I'll be really happy. But I'm a bit. Yeah. Some folks seem really keen. Like, I mean, I know Duncan from Red Cross has got a lot of stuff booked and everything. He seems really keen to make things happen and stuff. But I'm less sure of things definitely happening, but he seems to be he cares to a lot of heavier stuff across, like, you know, Edinburgh, Glasgow and Dundee sometimes, I think, as well. Actually, I think he played some stuff in Newcastle sometimes as well. I think he's really into like, you know, your stoner, your doom, and a lot of that sort of side of things and stuff. Like, you know, I put on bits and pieces of that, like, you know, like Bong or things like that stuff, but Duncan really caters to like a lot of that, your gritty like stuff of that kind of like ilk, which is cool, because I mean, like, sometimes you need people who kind of specialize in one thing, whereas I don't know, I like I like putting on different things and stuff, which is his own like thing. But maybe that's just what I'm like as a person. I'm like, oh, this or this, or, you know, a bit like that. But yeah,
I'm a bit like that as well, like too divergent.
I sometimes have phases. I don't know if you have this. I sometimes have phases, like sometimes where, like, I don't know, like there was a period, I must have been, I think it was early this year at some point. I just got like really back into like really like for a while I hadn't really listened to. I've been listening to like a lot more chill stuff, not really. Yeah, it was more chill stuff. And then I don't know, there was a period where I don't know what it was. I just decided I really wanted to listen to lots of metal again, and just like started listening to like loads of heavy, like, you know, stuff like lots of like Mastodon and like Roll Tomasi and like I don't know, like old like Funeral for a Friend and stuff like that as well. Just lots of like, you know, like or like angsty, like aggressive kind of
Yes,
stuff. But I don't know, I just
super emo.
I don't know, I just had like a period where I just got like really into that again. Like, you know, I loved it all like that when I was like a teen and like
Yeah.
you know, around our 20s and stuff. I don't know, I kind of like listen to it less now, but I don't know, just there's a period where it was just like I was like oh, I was listening. There was a small period like this year where all I was listening to was like heavier stuff, and then but then that faded away, and I was like, nah, I want more like, you know, like chill and like melodies and like no, there's not melodies in that too, but you know what I mean. It's different.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is probably best to maybe maybe break part 1 here and go and play some songs, and yeah, we'll do that.
Cool.
Paving load below under unconscious feet. And before we uncover the morning bruises, let me float over his presence still. Let this hurt a little more until the complete and shininess onto your back. I see them staring, I feel them speaking. My forgiveness enhanced is absolute, is unreplaced. And Billy Boy is the taker to your bedroom. Whoa, here on my face to give me a buzz. Whoa, here is my body made of buzz, wrongly exchanged. Pain road below under unconscious feet. And before we uncover the morning bruises, well, I crept over the curb with waves of soul from empty brass. Did you plan on my redemption from the crime I can't escape? So I stayed because the warmness made me feel I was at home. Only wanted to break up with me alone. While I crept over the curb with waves of soul from empty brass. Did you plan on my redemption from the crime I can't escape? So I stayed because the warmness made me feel I was at home. Only wanted to break up with me alone. away the turmeric and coconut oil. Use beauty products packaged in plastic and foil. Forget about the virtues of timid and demure. Woman of the West use sex and allure.
So anyone who's listening there, you'll have heard Absinthe My Love by Maud The Moth, Blonde by Misleading, Only in Freeze by The Breeders, Latin Roots by Fugazi, Losing Weight by Cloud Rat, Mere by Leia, and then Ignis Fautus by Maud The Moth. So just not before we broke there, we're talking about your second album, Inner Wastelands. So I noticed the next thing that you did was live at Reed Hall, which was basically just which was done in Edinburgh, actually, at the Reed Hall here, and you played a few songs from that album there, and with different musicians, obviously, yeah, which I was going to ask you about, but that makes sense if it was here rather than in Gothenburg, that if they were just the studio stuff. But it's interesting because I think they're even more, we're talking about them being more sparser. I think the arrangements on that Reed Hall one are I guess even sparser because it's not the whole production aspect of it. It's just you're doing it like live, and I think it's quite cool to hear the songs in that way as well. So how did that come about?
Well, that's just this. It doesn't have like quite a lot much more than that, really. Like I was after I recorded that album, I just really wanted to have definitely strings. So I was looking for a violinist in Edinburgh, and I met Shimon through I don't know, something absurd like Gumtree, I think, or someone was like, why don't you just put an ad on Gumtree? And I just met this crazy Polish guy who came over to my house, and he's such an amazing musician. So we started playing together, and he's like, oh, you know what? I've got this friend who plays drums. He's really good. So that was Paul. And then he came over as well, and we just kind of started playing together. I just do think like the songs in the Inner Wastelands have the potential of being like pretty heavy. And the drums were really pretty instrumental in that. That was a pun. They were like, like in achieving that. And because of course it was the first time that I actually had a band in the same place where I was living in the last, in like forever. So we were able to actually rehearse, and we were able to play gigs together and develop like the sound a little bit more. So I just really kind of wanted to capture that. I really think that it was like sounding pretty good. So I tried to organize a live session there, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
So how did you manage to do that at Reed Hall? Was that through, you were mentioning having connections before, but just with studying and stuff, or researching, was it, or something? So it was. Yeah,
so I did a PhD in Edinburgh in musical acoustics. So I did have like quite a lot of connections to the people from the Reed School of Music. I knew the booker at the Reed Concert Hall, and actually I didn't get that session through that. I got it through some other friends in Glasgow who knew one of the guys who was doing a sound design module or sound production module in Edinburgh, and they wanted to do they wanted to record a band. So I just met with him, and I was like, well, I'm looking to do a session, but I'm also wanting to get the person who mixed the album to mix it. So we kind of like reached an agreement, and just did it like that. And he was the one who was conducting the session and did all the like miking and recording.
Yeah, because was that Thomas Schemmeld?
Schemmeld, yeah.
Is that his name? Yeah, because I saw as well that Crispin mixed and mastered it again, which is good. I guess, was that to give it like a similar sort of tone and vibe?
He knows the songs, and I spent quite a lot of time with him. He knew more or less what I liked, and the type of sound that I was going for. So it was more, I was more under an idea of, coherence and so on.
Was it hard to pick what songs to do, or was it more just those are the ones that you and the band had learned or together?
I think those are the ones that worked the best live for that setup, of violin and drums. I think they're also the ones where Paul and Shimon like contributed to the most to the arrangements. Like, for example, the Good Morning Blackbird didn't have a violin line in the Inner Wastelands in the album, and Shimon just wrote that whole arrangement himself, and it was really, really, I really liked it. So it was like, oh man, like that he's gonna leave at some point because people move all the time. So, and I was like, and this is just gonna be lost forever, you know. So I just wanted to make sure that that was like captured somewhere.
So you want to make sure that one was done.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, then the other ones, they had like such a different reading, you know, like with having the drums there, it just made it so much heavier. And yeah, I just liked it.
Yeah, because there's definitely a different vibe. They're still the same songs, but it's nice hearing them done slightly differently with like, I guess slightly different with different arrangements and stuff. Because I can't remember which one. I'm sure there was one when I was listening to them that like I was like, oh, that's like a good bit, not a good bit, but like a little bit short. I think it was a little bit shorter, I think, than the album version, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. I feel like there was one that was the length was slightly different. Maybe that's just like the playing where stuff varies. I don't know. I feel like there was one where the timing was a bit different or something. Maybe it was like, it might have only been about 15 seconds or something. I think it was when I was just looking at them. Or I was just looking at it. I was like, oh, that's like, because it was when I was picking the songs, I wanted to pick Empires and Ignis Faus. Sorry,
it's okay. Don't worry.
Ignis Fatus.
Yeah,
and I wanted to pick those two, and I was like, well, they're on. Which one do I pick the live version? It's like, which ones do I want to pick the live version of, and which one do I pick the album one of? And I think just Emperor's Live was quite nice, so I went with that. But like it
was the radio edit. The radio edit, so like a shorter version. Yeah, I think Empires in the album has like quite a lot of development with the percussion section stuff. Maybe that just because the drums are like much more straightforward, so there's not so much. Yeah, it's just I would say there's not that much build up, but like there is. It's just kind of different, you know.
On the live one you're meaning rather than the
yeah, and the live one is like much heavier from the beginning, I think.
Do you think that helped you like understand, like, I don't know, did it help you gain new, well, do you think it helped you gain like new appreciation for like the songs and stuff, doing them different, like doing them with people in different ways, or
definitely. And this is something that I'm like really into now. Like I think before recording an album, well, I think like an album is just like a snapshot of the songs in a particular stage, and I like the idea of like the songs being like this live thing that evolves, you know, with time. And it can also evolve depending on how you play them, you know, like you can rearrange them to play them like, I don't know, like people do an acoustic cover of their own songs, you know what I mean? And I like that idea as well, because it kind of puts the focus on the songwriting and on the essence of the song and like what the song is about and what the song is trying to capture. And I mean, not to say that I don't care about, you know, the production or the atmosphere of music, but to me, I'm like, I guess I'm very songwriting centric. Like I like the idea of this like essence creature thing that's a song. That's manifest.
I'm now just thinking of these little like dark creatures, like, you know,
yeah,
like, you know, that kind of just like kind of appear at your piano and you start playing, you know, like playing some.
Yeah, but like that's the whole idea behind like this kind of like inspiration, right? Like, I mean, not that I believe in like inspiration, it's more like chance and just keeping at it. But the whole idea of like the muses, you know, that it's like, again, this you're not really forcefully writing something, but it's like more like something that manifests itself to you. And you're just there to capture it.
I'm just getting images of you going, right, I'm going to create this thing. I'm going to like, I don't know, say like, I'm getting more of like, I'm getting again like sort of like witchy, wizardy, like, you know, incantations like, right? You're just like going, well, I'm going to create this, and I'm like casting a spell, and then this thing appears. Like that's
I'm going around with this Geiger counter and like a tinfoil parabolic and a coat hanger, like just hooked onto my hair.
Well, that's a different image than I was thinking, but that's the problem. Anyway, I was more thinking of like, you know, something mystic, you know, with like a cape. I don't know, with like a cape, and you're going, yeah, like you know, here's a few things, and then this is going to conjure up this demon that's a song, or this spirit or something. So
yeah, I quite like that idea. Yeah, the conjuring songs. Yeah.
But yeah, because well, we're saying it must have been interesting just to do the songs again, because I mean it was a couple of years between doing that and the other one. So in some level, it's like if you're keeping at it, you can maybe argue you might even playing the songs better, but then maybe not. Maybe like the being in the studio was intense though the first go rounds. But yeah, I don't know. As we're just saying, like, you know, I guess you do songs a couple years later, like, unless you don't change the song up at all, then it's always gonna have a completely new life to it, I guess, 2 years later, unless like you're just doing nothing with it, just keep playing at it. But that sounds quite boring, to be honest. So like it's good to sort of, I guess, that you
I
change
think
them
it's
up, so.
always like, I mean, unless you're like some super high production artist, you know, that has like, you know, whatever they could wish for. In general, especially being DIY, you know, you have so many limitations. And if you're not flexible and you have limitations, then you either don't get anything done or it's going to be pretty crap, you know? So a big part of getting stuff done and like making the most out of the resources you have is being able to adapt and being able to change things to suit the situation that you're experiencing, you know? So I think it does have to change, you know, like just you can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting it to work.
Yeah, because some stuff it's done a certain way and it makes sense to kind of keep it, but there's lots of like, but it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting, I find, with songs that you've got. I don't know, no, like songs evolve over time, or not playing something the same, or building in sections into a song deliberately where like it could be interpreted differently. That's quite a fun way to write songs, I think, as well. Like having a certain bit where you can go, well, that can change depending on how you feel at the time. Like I love moments like that. They're quite fun. And it's interesting because I think sometimes it's interesting to hear you say, like, you know, you record them and then you develop them in a live way later, because I've been in a situation before where I've done it the opposite way, where like, you know, you write something and you keep playing it live a bunch, and it evolves from the live playing, and then you're like, right, now the song is ready to record.
Yeah, I agree that's definitely the ideal scenario. It's just that for me, I mean, I had played a bunch of the songs in the Inner Wastelands with the main member that I had in Spain, which was a double bass player, but I'd also played with a drummer there. So it was it did have this string and drums vibe. It was quite different. The timbre and the type of arrangements were very different. It sounded much more like much jazzier, you know, than like closer to the first album. And definitely swapping the lower strings for the higher strings gave it that more like Baroque, you know, more neoclassical vibe, I think. But yeah, I mean, I had been playing those songs for live for a while, just not with that setup. And it's because I changed country, you know, and I had to readapt completely to everything from scratch. I went from like having played the songs with a band to having to record them completely on my own. I mean, I did have like stuff recorded and arranged, and then I used like some session musicians. I mean, ideally you have your band, you know, and you play those songs and then they develop and then you go into the studio and so on. But for me, it was just not possible because I was just moving around so much, you know? So yeah, it's just, I did it the way that I could with the limitations.
Yeah, you adapted to the changes in the world and the land that surrounded you, I guess, in a way. Like,
yeah.
Try to make it sound all like outer worldly, and I think I partially succeeded. Yeah, partially succeeded.
Oh,
but
thanks.
So moving on from that, the next full album you recorded, we mentioned that earlier, was Orphany. That's that right?
I mean, I actually don't know how to pronounce it in English. I pronounce it Orphany, but I don't even know how it's pronounced.
Or is it Orphany? Orphany. I suppose it's got that E, so it's Orphany, wouldn't it be? Orphany. So that came out just last year, so that was like a year ago, June 2020.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, I was reading into it. I noticed that was recorded before. Like, it was all recorded before, like the dark lockdown times.
Yeah.
It was recorded. It was all recorded in 2019.
Yeah, there was another situation where I recorded the pianos, and then I was like, no, and then I recorded the pianos again.
Yeah, because I've got quite a lot of notes. Because I took some notes on this one because I noticed like there was a lot of different recording thing. There was a lot of different credits on that one. I noticed. Like
yeah.
I noticed. I noticed you had the same drummer as from Live at Reed Hall.
Paul. Yeah.
And I noticed. That was recorded at Oregon Studios, but then the vocals and the strings were recorded at Sonorous Studio.
Yeah, just where I used to live, basically in Edinburgh.
And then the pianos were recorded at Reed Hall. Mm-hmm. And then there was some other strings recorded in Spain, and then it was mixed and mastered by Jamie Gomez who recorded the drums at Oregon Studios.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of different places to
Mhm.
record and stitch stuff together. That's quite exciting, but that must have been a bit of a ball ache.
It was
assemble.
such a mission to record that album. Like, it was such hard work. I mean, starting by the fact that I recorded the pianos while playing. So I was like, I literally had the door open on top of the piano and I mic'd the piano, checking, I couldn't play and place the microphone. So I would just have to like play with a microphone position and then choose another microphone position, see what suited, or just like I completely over mic'd. And then when I got to the studio in England, I was like, look, this is all the stuff I recorded. Just pick whatever suits. And then, yeah, same thing. I recorded the vocals myself at home. The violinist is like, she's like so talented, man. It's insane. This woman from Spain, she's like classical violinist, but she's got like her own singer-songwriter project as well. And I just basically shipped her over. I bought her a plane ticket and she came stay over at my house. And again, we would like wake up. She would like work on some of the songs, write some of the arrangements, and then in the evening we would record whatever she'd come up with. And then I exported all that stuff into a very, very big hard drive. And we went down to England and we recorded the drums. And then Paul left and I stayed over with Jaime doing part of the mixing, with like just guiding him, around all the stuff where everything went, more or less.
It's Jaime, not Jamie. It's Jaime.
Yeah.
Right,
well, actually, I think most people in the UK know him as Gomez.
Okay.
So,
right.
yeah, he's a Colombian guy, but he's been living. He actually, like, I think he's like got like British nationality now. Like, he's just been living here for so long.
One thing about Orphanade that I thought was really cool actually was I'm not going to play it because I played it on a previous episode, is that Epoxy Bonds song. Like you mentioned the violin player being really, really cool and stuff. And there's the straight, for instance, that song opens with strings and they're well cool. They're fucking cool. Like there's a really kind of just cool like. And that's one of the best string arrangements on the album. I think it's just like like.
Thank you.
It's
that's one of the few string arrangements I wrote. Actually.
Oh, you did that. Oh, you did that one. All right. Because I think it's really cool. Just that the album that song starts with strings. Like I really like that. Like it's one of the ones that really stood out to me. Like that song always. I mean, when I listened to when I was because I wanted to pick one of your songs for another podcast. When I was listening to that album, that was the one I was like, right, I want this one. And I think if I hadn't already picked it, I would have probably picked that for this. But I've already played it. I can't recycle myself again. So, so that Epoxy Ones one, I think it was interesting that it was like one of the shorter ones, but it was kind of like at the end of the album. It's interesting because there's like a pure, what song is it? It's like an 8-minute song, like near the beginning. So it's quite
yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, like sort of I don't know, I guess a more traditional way of structure something would be to put like the 8-minute epic kind of near the end and stuff. So I think it's quite cool that like that's kind of quite the start of the album, and then it kind of goes into like, I don't know, I think it's quite cool that's there, and there's a shorter one near the end and stuff. I think that's quite a cool way to structure something.
Yeah, I think it's more because it's like there's like a stronger narrative line in the first 6 or 7 songs of the album. And then actually Epoxy Bonds was a bit of like a homeless song. It was going to go in the Inner Wastelands, but I hadn't finished it yet. It looked very, very different when I wrote it for that album. So I just kind of kept at it, and it wasn't actually until like I was working with the violinist in Edinburgh that I kind of like worked out this kind of like just starting it more sparsely, just with the strings and like this kind of like splashy vocally thing that's like just this kind of dysfunctional choir thing.
That's interesting because it's because you wouldn't know it was a leftover one at all, because it's like, again, like although obviously like Orphanage is closer in vibe to Inner Wastelands than obviously of course Home Futile Home, it still very much has its own self-contained way, because obviously there's less songs, like it's an 8-song kind of thing, album kind of thing. But it feels like a real natural progression from Inner Wastelands. I think like it's definitely like in terms of the albums, that's definitely the strong. it's definitely the strongest one of the 3, I would say. Like which is probably what you want to hear. Given like your most recent one. maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
But it definitely is like the strongest one and stuff, and like things like the Mirror Door is a good song, and then the one we played earlier on, As Above So Below. I thought it was quite funny on Bandcamp. It just has like a bracket single to sort of like this is the single, this is the big hit.
It's so weird. That's just because of the way that when you upload digital music, like music digitally online, like there's this whole like format that you have to abide by. And if you have an album release, then you're allowed to choose one single, and then that goes into playlisting. Well, no, it doesn't go into playlisting, but it gets like goes into auction, the playlisty auction. So yeah, there's always like, if you're doing like a release, an actual like tiered release, like you'll release first one song and then another one, and then those get promoted, and then it's just, yeah, it just has to do, there's not really much of like an artistic decision there. It's more like a PR side of things, I guess.
No, I didn't know that, but that makes sense. It's just funny seeing it like built as like single.
Yeah.
Because I guess when I heard it, I just heard the film. It's definitely more epic as well. Like I think in terms of the songwriting, there's definitely like a clear progression from the previous one, and there's like more, I guess, like the songs are more epic. They've got this more like almost like just it's almost like classical epicness kind of feel to them than the other side.
Yeah,
I know it seems the
songwriting in that song is very conditioned by the way that I perform it live, which is it's a looping song.
Which one? The As Above So Below, you mean?
Well, yeah, that one, and also Epoxy Bonds, to be honest, those two are very, very conditioned by the other I mean, I don't really perform Epoxy Bonds very much live because I don't find it that interesting to play. But both those songs are very much based on like a more traditional approach to looping. And I think that just kind of really favors that building up, that build up of epic proportions ending in feedback.
That's fair. Well, because I was more meaning like the whole album as well. I was in the whole album just has that general more epic kind of feel to it, and has I don't know, like, because obviously it's clearly a classical influence before, but I think that album definitely probably has. I mean, to my ears, it sounds like it's got the most classical influence kind of in it, but I don't know how if that's always been there. You just executed it better. I don't know, but it just has like, I think there's just more leanings to that. I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I think in the last years I've kind of started, because I played classical piano like pretty intensely until I was like 18 or something like that. And then I started studying engineering, so I didn't really have a lot of time for like anything else in my life. And then I was in bands, and just like, I don't know, I've been in a couple of like jazz bands as well where I just did singing, but I didn't really like go back to the classical until like 3 or 4 years ago, that I just like started going like, like a lot, like mostly through like classical singing, but then I started picking up the classical piano as well, and just playing, like just picking repertoire and playing it. And I think that's definitely influenced a lot. The stuff that I'm writing now actually is like even more so, I think, in that direction.
That'll be cool to hear when that's ready to go. I mean,
yeah.
Will it be another couple of years, like between the last kind of couple? Well, I suppose actually no. It's been like, it's been like 5. Yeah, it's like 5 years between the last two albums. So we'll be waiting until 2025 to hear the.
No, definitely not. I'm hoping to release it next year, actually.
Oh, exciting.
So yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
One other thing actually regarding Orphan, actually I wanted to ask was so obviously it was all recorded 2019 and stuff, but the reason why it took till June of this year to come out, was that more just to do with, again, all produced and getting it all put together and everything, or was it delayed to like have like a tour and then the tour fell through or anything? Or was there a reason why it took a while?
Well, I mean, it was like a really big investment for me to do this album, both economically and energetically. I'm completely self-funded and DIY, so I don't really have anyone to do anything of the whole like release path for me, so there was definitely that I was sorting out artwork, I was sorting out PR stuff, like who was going to do the PR. And then it was also quite delayed because I had a record deal offer that I did not end up accepting. I don't know, it's something that I kind of waited on for quite a while because I had put like so much effort into into making the album that I just wanted it to have the best chance, at life. So I was kind of waiting around for a really long time for things like that.
You didn't want to just piss it into the wind, effectively. You wanted it to be...
Well, I mean, no, because I'd done that with other albums, and I knew that, it's just, you spend 5 times creating something, and then it was really expensive, but I paid everybody session fees. I paid, obviously, like for the mixing and the mastering out of my own pocket, which, like Jaime is quite a renowned producer. So yeah, it was really expensive. It was a big investment, and I just really wanted, obviously, like things coming out through a label have like all these paths that are completely closed to a DIY artist. They really are. Like, I mean, you can just work your ass off and eventually, become like pretty well known if you've got the leverage. I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking like Annie DiFranco. I don't know if you know her, but she's always been like, I mean, she's like super famous and she's like amazing, but she was really, really popular in, I think, the 90s. And they tried to sign her when she was like 16, and she was like, no. And she started her own record label, and she's like a world-known, she's really famous. But I still wonder whether if she had signed to like a label, she would have become like as famous as, like, I don't know, Alanis Morissette, that was like at that time, the other kind of
massive.
I know, but Annie DiFranco had that vibe, like, well, she's much better musically. I mean, I'm not saying that Alanis Morissette is like a bad musician at all, because I mean, she's probably amazing, but like all people at that level are probably pretty competent musicians, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that like having a label is like really, it just takes a lot of stress out of the people's shoulders. And I actually have friends on labels who complain about things from being in a label. And sure, I mean, nothing's perfect, but maybe they should give DIY a try, and then then complain if they still feel like it. But
yeah, because there's a lot more there's a bit of a verse, I think, because obviously it depends on the label and stuff with it and everything. But obviously one of the advantages of DIY is full control over absolutely everything yourself, but then one of the disadvantages is the extra bulk and costs and stuff. And also, as I was saying, like the disadvantage of maybe if you release something, it could just be pissed into the wind, and if you spend a lot of time
people in general don't pay any attention to you, or you don't get to play any big festivals, because most of the festivals, like, they have like kind of packages that they'll give to like a label, and then the label will like plug all of their bands in it, obviously with some form of artistic criteria. I'm not meaning like this is like the mafia or anything like that, but there are interests that as a DIY artist you just can't access. It's just this the way it is, and it is a trade-off. You give your work for someone else to benefit from it, but they are also providing you with something. So it's whether what you are getting from it compensates for what you are losing.
Yeah, I think the ideal way to do it is to work with like a small like DIY kind of label to give you a hand with like the cost of like the I mean,
I tried doing that, but
the vinyl side of things. But but again, I say that I've never had much luck with it. Like I've got an album myself that I'm kind of sitting on that I've emailed a bunch of labels about, and I heard back from one, and it was a no, but at least they got back. But I mean, it's just so you spend all this time sort of.
I mean, making vinyls is exceptionally expensive, and not only that, there's such a massive waiting list. That was another reason, like the vinyls took forever to get made. Because vinyls
they look like they were worth it though, because I mean, like from what I could see, the pictures and stuff, like you've gone full out with like a full-blown package. There's like a nice cover, and there's like you open up and there's stuff in there as well. So it seems like you've gone.
Yeah, but I mean, I paid on my own for a gatefold, like gold foil vinyl. Like that. It was really, really expensive, and like my house is like. It's like a little label, really. Like I just have merch everywhere. I end up wearing my merch because I just like open a drawer and it's like, oh, it's just merch. I'll just wear this. No, kidding.
The Maud The Moth Casa.
Exactly.
Casa
Maison the Moth.
Casa
Chess Moth.
I was going to say Casa or Castle. Castle also works fine. It sounds like it's a castle as well. You just need to invest in some like a moat and drawbridge and some armor.
I'm sure my neighbors will love that.
Like, what are you doing to the building? Oh, I'm just putting in like a moat, and I'm gonna get a dragon to guard my treasure trove.
All my merch.
Yeah, you never know. If someone steals that and they sell it in the black market, I hear Maud The Moth t-shirts go for like good money on the black market.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good point to break the second bit, I think, actually. So we'll break and we'll play some more songs.
Secret domains and me are growing bars around the borderlines. Yes, my king, I swear, yes, my king, I shall kneel down. Eyes are drowning, lips are burning, silence is a cage without a bailing out. Grass does bloom, feed the versions on the who you speak.
de vez en cuando los cadáveres sanan en la tumba, con una capita de estrella en los brazos, un sol nuevo. A veces sienten esas ganas frescas de vivir.
So anyone who's just listened there, you'll have heard Empires Live by Maud The Moth, I Will Eat Your Blood by False Bliss, Queremos Verte by Trajeslavia?
Traje de saliva.
Raka de Saliva. Raka de
Yeah.
Saliva? Yeah, Raka de Saliva. Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead by Gaze's Ghost. The Mirador by Maud The Moth. Hidden Danger, the music of Rhea by Debbie Wiseman and the National Symphony Orchestra from Stephen Fry's Mythos. And then Siphonophores by Maud The Moth. Did I say that one right? Siphonophores?
Yeah.
Yeah, Siphonophores. I was a pain in the arse to write that one down when I was writing the names, and I was like, how the fuck do you spell this?
Sorry.
It's a cool title though, but yeah, anyways, speaking of Siphonophores, I see that's the only Maud The Moth song that's been released that was I guess released apart from Orkney, which is before that was released during the lockdown, well, during the sort of times we're in just now. So was that written like when the crazy times started happening, or had that been written before and it was just recorded later?
Yeah, it was written like a little bit before, but I did kind of work on it a bit more around that time. And yeah, I mean, I actually on my to-do list, my plan list, like you mentioned before, you're like all the things you wanted to do with gigs. Like I have like a similar obnoxious list about all the things that I want to like record or like write. Or so I want to do like at some point a little like guitar album, and I have a couple of songs, and that's definitely one of them that I'd very much like to include. But yeah, I recorded that in Germany on electric guitar, which I didn't really think that if I did a guitar album, it would be like that. It would, but I don't know. Who knows what the future will bring.
It's quite a nice song because it's quite different. Because obviously a lot of your stuff is obviously folk who know what you do. It's obviously read by the piano and the voice, and quite strong. Yeah, and obviously strongly so because obviously they're both quite like, I know. Quite a lot going on with both of those instruments, the way you do it and everything as well, and like you fairly belt it out when you sing and stuff. So that was quite also there's confident moments, but I mean, but that song is quite definitely on the softer kind of side and stuff. And it's interesting sort of hearing you kind of play guitar rather than that. It's like a different, but it still has that sort of like dark ambient-y, I guess, textures and stuff that obviously the two albums like Inner Wastelands and Orphaney have. So you can definitely tell it's by the same artist. It's from the same sort of, I guess, ideas and things stuff. But it's interesting to hear it. Like, I guess, like you can tell it's still obviously it sounds like a song you've written, but it's interesting to hear it on like a different instrument and like so it'd be cool to hear more of that basically. So
I actually find it like really interesting how differently I write when I write on piano than when I write on guitar. And I really like the idea that, like, again, you're kind of in conversation with this instrument and you create something that isn't just you forcefully like making something, that you're so conditioned by the sounds that you're getting from the instrument and so on. And I mean, obviously I don't play the guitar very well, so I guess it's definitely an aspect of limitation there. But I also feel like I'm really, really hyper with my writing or doing things. So not being very good at an instrument probably grounds me a bit, which I find quite interesting. And someone was asking me like a while back, like that they felt really stuck, like they had like this writer's block, and I was like, oh, you should try like just playing an instrument that you don't play. And just like, just making some sounds on a weird instrument, or just and I feel that kind of helps unlock a lot of stuff.
It can definitely, for sure, or sometimes you can pick up an instrument that you kind of like a bit, and you can kind of become better at that from writing and doing things with it as well, which is also a nice sort of, I guess, bonus of picking up a different instrument as well. But I guess if you're playing something that you don't know how to play, I guess you might interpret it differently to the way someone who knows what they're doing with it does, or you'll feel limited, but that might push you to kind of be more inventive with the song that you write. I think that's kind of what you're getting at, but like, which I agree with completely. Like that can sometimes be a good thing to definitely.
Yeah, I mean, stuff doesn't need to be like super complex or super elaborate to be good, you know, like.
Oh no, you can write good songs that have like, you know, like a couple of notes in them, you know.
Exactly, yeah. So I think it makes you focus on different things of the songwriting and the music making. And yeah, I really, really love that song so much. It's like just really, really I mean, I guess all my songs I like, otherwise I wouldn't have written them, but it is really, really special. I find it really comforting.
So that was recorded you said it was in Germany. That was Fry the Rich Studios.
Yeah. That's another one of these like studios that don't really exist. It's basically Scott's production endeavor, wherever he happens to be. And I named it Fry the Rich because it's in the rehearsal space that he used to have with Stefan, who's also in Healthy Living, so the drummer, and he has this recording studio in Dresden in a road that's called Friedrichstraat. So, and I started calling it Fry Rich.
Oh, what does that translate to in German? It's something street that translates to, because Strat.
It's like Frederick. Frederick. Is that a name? Like Frederick's,
Frederick Street.
Yeah, to me it was like Fry the Rich.
The street can be Strasse as well, can't it? I think.
Yeah, Strasse. Yeah, Strasse is like road. Yeah. Like in Italian, I guess it's almost same.
Is that what it is in Italian? Street?
I think one of the words they have for streets or roads, I think, are strada. Or anyway,
what's road in Spanish actually? Topic, so.
We have very many different words. So if you're in a town, it would be calle. Calle, yeah. But then if it's like for the cars, it would be carretera.
All right, carretera.
Come on, you're Scottish. You can roll it.
Carretera.
Almost there. Yeah, carretera.
Carretera or something.
It had a bit of a maybe had a bit of an Italian hue.
Maybe a 6 out of 10.
Spanish lessons with Maud The Moth.
Yeah, I struggle with like certain languages. Like I find German easier to get the pronunciations right on than I do than things like French, Spanish, Italian, etc. Like I find German because it's more harsher pronunciations, so it suits my voice better. I think like because the way they say certain things is similar to the way Scots would say certain things. Like when they say like night is nacht, that kind of sound is quite similar. So I find that easier. But maybe if I want to learn Spanish, I could make this into a regular thing. I could find people and just who speak a different language, and I could so I can have Spanish lessons with Maud The Moth, and then I don't know about
in these times of career change and like finding new ways of income. you might turn the blog from like a music blog into language.
Yeah, and then another person I know Pat from Pal. I can have German lessons with Pat. What else can I do? There's a band called Gift Horse. Audrey does.
Oh, I know that band.
They're great. Like Audrey's French, so there you go. It's Or I actually know French bands. I play with a bunch of French bands actually, so I could do French. Ultra Demon features more Chocolate Billy. So that's not a problem. So I don't know. So that's free. That's free languages down. Oh, and then Sandra, who did the podcast art. She's Italian, so
cool. There we go. Perfect.
And my flatmate's from Slovakia.
You got it. You got it covered.
There you go. That's some of them. So. Completely sidetracked there, but one more thing I want to say about siphonophores actually was the art for that was quite cool actually. Like the picture, I quite like the picture. Did you do the picture for that, or was
no? That's a picture that I ripped off from somewhere in the internet and very cunningly modified it in all ways possible so it wouldn't get flagged for copyright. It's kind of provisional artwork. It is an actual picture of a siphonophore, which is it's a fascinating creature. They are, But creature, like I think I'm really into them because it's like you can't really call it an animal or a creature. It's like a collective being. It's a being of beings. Like it only makes sense as a collective.
Ah.
So it's kind. Sorry,
Well,
what?
I don't really know what a siphonophore is actually, so we could have a biology lesson.
Oh, you said you didn't know, or you do
No,
know
I
what
don't know what a siphonophore
Ah,
is. So.
yeah, I mean, I am like definitely not a biologist, but yeah, I'm like just really into like, I just really like animals, and especially like sea animals. I think they're fascinating. And yes, siphonophores are like crazy. The best known is is it the Portuguese man o' war, I think it's called. Some people think it's a jellyfish, but it's not. It's a siphonophore, and it's like this floaty, murderous blob. Like
That's
if
cool.
it just touches you, it's like Cthulhu. Like just yeah, it's like so deadly. Like so many people die every year from like just being like just minding their own business, swimming in the beach, and then this thing floats by, and they're like, okay, yeah.
And
Well,
that's the manowar type of siphonophore specifically that does that.
yeah, but lots of siphonophores are apparently very poisonous, and it's really crazy. It's like just I don't know. It's like some kind of like polyamorous, very toxic relationship that just floats the sea, completely unaware, completely unaware of of its existence. And yeah, it's like all these beings that have like a group together, and each of them does something for this. It's like a little society almost.
A little poisonous, deadly society.
Exactly, just not a very friendly one, but a society nonetheless.
Maybe they've been burned. Maybe just at some point in history, they just decided fuck people.
Yeah, maybe I just imagine them like a bunch of
them.
like angry people with pitchforks, just floating around.
It'll be a bit like was it when they chased Frankenstein's monster into the not chase him into like a tower or something in the film. The original Frankenstein from like Hammer horror. I think they chase him into like a tower or something. I've not seen the full film. I'm sure there's a scene where they chase him into like a tower. I know in the original book, like he goes away into like the Arctic or the Antarctic I'm not sure, one of them. He goes away into there, and then Frankenstein has to find him and there's I think they wrote spoil the ending of that, but I think in the original film, I think he's chased. Well, but I think in the film that came after, I think he's like chasing like a tower or something. I'm not quite sure. So
like an angry mob.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess siphonophores like the angry mob of the sea.
That's a good way of looking at it. The angry mob of the sea.
To be fair, there's lots of creatures in the sea that just kind of float around, and just kind of by pure statistical, by rule of statistics, just stay alive. Do you know about the sunfish? The sunfish is like, it has its mouth fused together, so it just floats around with its open mouth, and it doesn't use up a lot of energy. So eventually, like a bunch of jellyfish just drift into its mouth, and it's like cool. It's just like walking around your kitchen with your open mouth and hoping like a sandwich would just like. I mean, if you walk around,
it can't close its mouth.
It can't.
Oh my god,
they're terrible. Like actually, like sometimes like seals will come at them and like take a nibble out of like a sail, and it can't really like one of a flipper, and it can't do anything to defend itself. It just stays there. They're
fish.
Pretty incredible.
Sounds like it's been dealt a short hand by fucking nature and evolution by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I think they release like 300 million eggs or something like that when they spawn, because of course like most of them just die.
That's so many.
Yeah. They're also like not even very floatable. Like they're just like really badly designed. Like they're just really tall and really narrow, so they don't really kind of keep in that position very well. They always like sometimes float horizontally to the surface and get like eaten by the seagulls. Like they'll land on them and peck at their eyes.
To be honest, this sounds like a song topic if it's not already being done. Like I could see a Maud The Moth song about that now. Like a concept album about creatures from the sea, siphonophores, sunfish, etc. Move over a creature from the Black Lagoon. There's other things to talk about. So yeah, so moving it back onto the music front.
Lol.
Well, I could partially tie it actually. Is yeah, so we're talking about sea animals, but there's something you've done recently that involves cats actually. So see, it's sort of keeping it relevant to both ends. So there was a new song that you put out very recently, actually, probably the most recent thing that you put out actually. That was that what was it called again? It was for a compilation Lost in Catland, which Gray Malkin put together. And this is very nice actually, the way this sort of pans out way, because on the first ever episode of the podcast I interviewed, it was Bert Prawl was the guest, and he mentioned Gray Malkin then. So or Gray Malkin is I can't remember if it's Gray Malkin or Gray Malkin.
Gray Malkin, yeah.
Yeah, but it's nice that this kind of comes sort of that sort of circle kind of comes back to that way and everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of Paul, so obviously you and him did the song for that together called "Crowd of Mice" under the inventive name Mothpaw, which I like, and it does work, but it does very much seem just kind of like, right, what can we call ourselves together? Here we go. Here's part of our names, but it does work though. It's a good name. Like it's a good name though. Like Mothpaw.
I know it's a great name. We are. I mean, it is going to be a project. We've been writing some stuff together. Some of it featuring me on violin, which let me tell you, it's not something you want to hear, but we don't mind about what people want to hear because we haven't we haven't really cared very much before. So now I'm like, yeah. So yeah, we've been working on some stuff, and yeah, like I actually didn't know Andrew that much before the pandemic. We played a gig together in probably what brought COVID to Edinburgh. We both got COVID after that, and we played this gig in Henry Cellar Bar, and yeah, we just kind of, it was like, I loved his set. Like we stayed in contact and so on, but it's mostly during the pandemic that we just like started going out for like walks. And yeah, at some point we were like, let's like write some music together. And this was like the first thing that has actually come out, I guess.
It's nice as well that that compilation, I've listened to your song that's on it, and like I really like the song that you and Andy have written together. It's a really cool little it's always kind of like, because I like it starts with just the guitar and then kind of piano and the vocals kind of a bit afterwards. I kind of think it's quite cleverly arranged because you could have all come in at once, but I like that it just kind of starts with the guitar and almost sounds like a Burnt Paul song, but with you singing on it as well. And then it is actually, but then it evolves. It's quite cool. So
yeah, it is actually a Burnt Paul song. Like he wrote the whole thing, he just came and showed it to me, and we played it through a couple of times, and I'm like starting to put together a little home studio. So I recorded it here. But yeah, it was pretty much his song. And then I just kind of did vocal arrangements and piano arrangements for it, which I think it kind of adds adds a bit of like that flavor. But yeah.
Yeah, because definitely sounds different from his stuff. As I said, it sounds like his stuff when it starts, but once it gets going, it sounds like like a proper, obviously, like collab between the pair of you, and the harmonies are quite nice. Like it's really, the voices actually sound really good together, and it's really it's just cool. It just works so nicely. But I just like that. I just like the piano comes in later. I just like that it's because I mean some people would have played straight away, but I like that like it doesn't come in straight away. I like that it comes in a bit afterwards. It's like it's a cool little way of sounding like it. So that compilation, which is it's also got great other great acts like Pefkin and Kitchen Cynics are on that as well. And I think the proceeds go to like is it a cat home? The proceeds go to
to the Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home, I think it's called.
There's a lot of tracks on it. I'm definitely going to check out the rest of it later. But
it's definitely a project for a whole afternoon.
Yeah, but I think if folk like cats and also good music and stuff, I think it's definitely by like acts like that, as I said. And I think Gray Malkin's got a track on it as well. and then other acts that I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff on that. I trust it to be good because I mean, like I know Grey Malkin collaborates with Kitchen Cynics a bunch and stuff as well, and I love what Alan does as well.
Yeah.
And
I quite like the Ashtoreth one as well. Like it's I've collaborated with Peter in a couple of things as well. Like this collective in Bristol called Death Space Chamber Music.
That's an amazing name. Like,
yeah, I know, they're really, really good. They're really, really interesting band. And yeah, I've kind of crossed paths with him before, and I was like, small world. But yeah, the thing with Grey is like insane. Like he's so productive. Like he's always releasing stuff. I love so much. I mean, most of his stuff I think is released on Reverb Worship, which does lathe cut vinyls.
cool.
Yeah, and they're just he's released some Pefkin stuff as well. I think they released a Pefkin and Bell Lungs split.
Oh yeah, it
ages
was like,
ago. Was that not on Reverb Worship?
I'm not sure what that was on. I just because I remember Bellwug's song was Mosseldam on that, or Mosseldam I think, Mosseldam I think, and then I can't remember what the Pefkin song on it was called again, but
yeah, so he just does so much stuff. It's crazy. Like I know like Moon in the Hair, but it's just so many. He's got his fingers in all the pies, all the musical pies.
Yeah, so if you ever say, "Oh, who ate all the musical pies?" You're like Grey Malkin.
Exactly.
Yeah. So further on with this, so that collaboration actually is interesting as well because that so when I get the acts I'm interviewed to pick a highlighted artist that they want to talk about and stuff, it's quite nice actually. This is panned out like this as well because so for that you've actually picked Burnt Paw, and it's really nice that you've done that because like this is now like the 11th one of these, and it's quite nice that that we're harkening back to the first ever interviewed act. I quite like how that's gonna come. Like it's nice that like eventually someone's picked him as their highlighted artist to talk about. Because Andy's obviously amazing. He's incredibly supportive of like loads of like people doing lots of kind of like lovely wacky endeavors like music and art and everything and whatever. So it's quite nice that it says that you guys have met and become closer over lockdown and stuff. Because a lot of people kind of worry about lockdown having negative effects and stuff. But it sounds like it's kind of done a nice thing for the two of you and a friendship
definitely,
which is nice. But I mean, I suspect pretty much most folk who will listen to this will know who Andy Burnt Paw is. But for those who don't, do you want to give a brief overview as to what he does basically?
I guess he would just describe himself as a weird pagan that loves crisps.
It's pretty appropriate actually.
But I don't know. He's an artist. I mean, I wouldn't really know very well how to describe him like that, more than that, like that just being an artist. He's an artist with everything he does, like the way he approaches creating pieces, whether it's like a massive watercolor of like naked people dancing around a cat and dragons or playing music, or just like the way he just exists in this world. Is just everything is really artistic. He used to teach English poetry and it really shows in his lyrics. Like it's just incredible. But yeah, if you don't know his work, do really check it out because it's just incredible. It's just like really straightforward, pure, undistilled art. It's just completely raw creativity and like so connected emotionally and really inspired, really, really beautiful.
That's
can't praise him enough.
That's pretty spot on. A pagan that loves crisps is like probably the most appropriate description I think I've ever heard of him. He loves a good crisp sandwich.
He does. Yeah,
it's lovely. I mentioned. He came up in the conversation in the last episode as well. Actually, so like I mentioned, he has a new album out, which is great. We're gonna play a song from that later.
Yeah, Let Your Armor Down
as well, which is cool. And obviously that was recorded at Anvil Studios, which is again another plug for them because Terry who works there is great and stuff, and Andy's stuff always sounds nice out there. And I had a great experience working with Terry as well earlier this year. So if anyone wants to record a tape tape studio. That's in Ratho, which is a really cool scenic place to record, and it's really nice. Like you get a good cycle on the canal on your way out to there, and there's lots of tea, so it's a plug for that too, I think there. But one thing I should mention, because I mean, a lot of times if Andy ever does a conversation, his music can often comes up a lot, but it's nice to talk about a bit about his art there, because he is also an incredible artist as well. So I like
definitely, yeah,
covers and stuff, because I think he's as well as being a great musician and a lovely human being, he's also like a great artist. So it's nice to sort of recognize that aspect of what he does as well. So I would say, and talk about his lyrics a bit more too. I'm glad that you mentioned those. It's nice to sort of hear someone say those and stuff as well. And then when we were talking through Messenger actually today, you were saying you wanted to talk about Chatting Temples briefly as well. Like,
yeah. Just because I've been recently hanging out with Alex as well, and I've been. We were in the park the other day. She brought her massive gong, which was quite a sight, in the middle of Hollywood Park, just like this person with a massive gong. And and they did like a little. Well, I was there with my violin, just ruining all the beauty. And I think like what they're doing is like so special and so original. Like I've just never really seen anything like it. It's like some kind of sound therapy crossover ritual, crossover melodic percussion type of. It's just really, it's kind of really strange that, because there's no actual like melodic instruments, right? I mean, apart from the voice, obviously, but like gongs, just like they're not very known by their like capacity to produce like a defined pitch. But the way that Alex plays it, it's like she just makes it sound really musical. Not that music is only harmony, but and I don't know, it's just something, it's something quite magical about Chanting Temples.
They're cool, like it's because it's almost kind of like chill doom soundscapes, kind of almost.
But also like the way that you arrive at that sound with a gong and a person singing, it's also like mind blowing,
Yeah, they because the EP, I don't know what they're called. I don't call it an EP or an album, but the release they put out was really cool. And I got a tape release on I can't remember the name of the label, but got a Zener. I forgot Sensory Leakage. That's the name.
Yeah.
And the tapes are really cool. I do remember it was really funny. I mentioned when I interviewed Andy, he mentioned it was coming out on tape, but then by the time the interview came out, the tape had already been released and was sold out. So like I was like, I plugged the tape and talked about how great it'd be, how cool the tapes would be, and then by the time I heard, I've got one. I was on it, but it's quite funny that like when you could like to hear that back, to like remember that when that came out, the tapes were sold out, and I'm going, oh, but the purple tape sound amazing. That's so ideal, and then it just never sold out. So like anyone who wasn't aware of it wouldn't be able to get one. So it's a bit of a weird plug to do. But no, they did another thing recently as well. They again, folk may or may not have seen this, but I did a variety show stream last month, and they contributed a new long piece to that was really, really cool and stuff as well. So, and I see Alex also does stuff under the name Sound Priestess as well. So I know she's got her own stuff as well. And I'll tell the story just because I think it's funny. I think we mentioned it's off mic. I think we're talking about like how I said that. I was saying that like I was talking. I met her like properly, like I bumped into her at the beach. She recognized me because similar to yourself, as we were saying off mic as well. I think that like we'd met once before at the Bong gig, but I was running around running a gig and stuff. But like Alex has a similar experience to meeting me as well. Like she'd also like met me at that, but like but that would be I was just running around trying to run a gig and stuff. But like, so I was at Portobello Beach, and she just like came up to me and I recognized my face. And then and I was like, oh, hi, and then we just blathered for a bit, and then for conversation came to the idea of like, if Bong ever come back to Edinburgh, that we'll get Giant Temples to support them and stuff, because her way of phrasing it was Bong with gong.
I can totally see that working,
which is amazing, and she was wanting to do the poster of it, so I'd love that to happen. But and if anyone wants to do
a she should message them and do a collaboration.
That'd be well cool. But yeah, so if gigs ever happen again, like I will like sort that out. We'll call it Bong with Gong.
Amazing.
As per Alex's suggestions. So
we need to bring like some pillows and like some incense into the Wee Red Bar. I have been at a gig at the Wee Red Bar that we were all like lying on the floor with Jalen actually. Yeah, and we were just lying there, and there's like some people playing like tape loops. It was wonderful.
That sounds well cool. There should be more like things to sit on at like certain gigs. It's funny though because with Bong, like obviously we'll attract people who are kind of like want to sort of sit and kind of get immersed like that. But it also does obviously they have a fair like they tried a fair bit of like a more metal-y kind of crowd and stuff as well. So you do get like who are into like really hard at their doom and stuff who probably would be less into this singing like the line on a pillow. But I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming maybe people will come and you'll put that down. They'll be like, oh, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. Rather than like want to stand there and stroke their beards, or if they're women or people who don't have beards.
I think some people would definitely struggle, but sorry.
And that's all I was saying. I was finished.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that some people would struggle to see something like that different, but I think it's the way to go, kind of like start plugging things that are very different, and it's like, expand your horizons.
Quite like to sit that actually. See a gig like that, just sort of sitting there. You can sit and just chill on the pillows, and I don't know, and then with incense, and then I don't know, get like a bowl of food, like just sit there with your food and watch it. That could be quite fun. You can eat your food to your first act, to your second act, you could then lie back and digest your food while lying back. That could be that could be something. The most like
order some pizzas.
But you won't want the pizzas to arrive at like
that would be so sick. Like you're in a gig and the promoter just orders some pizzas for everyone.
That'd be cool. But it'd have to arrive like either between the acts or before the acts start playing. Because it'd be the worst if you're like playing and then suddenly like. It depends on the set. If you're playing like I don't know, like a long form doomy or a long form atmospheric kind of set, you wouldn't want that to happen. But say I don't know, you're just playing some songs or something. I don't know, say Burnt Paw, or you're like yourself were playing or something, and like you played a song and then suddenly the song was done, and then the people were like pizza. That'd be amazing. It'd be great, wouldn't it? So.
I mean, one of the weirdest gigs I've ever played in my life was in Barcelona. I played in the Hard Rock Cafe for this like.
Oh, that's a claim of fame.
Cancer awareness type of concert. It was so strange, dude. And I was just playing there, and the people were just munching on their burgers, and I was like, just really strange, really, really strange. And like people trying to have their conversation, and then the people who were there to watch the gig getting pissed off at the people who were speaking, and then the people who were speaking getting pissed off at me because I was playing just screaming into the void. And they were like, why is this angsty lady bashing on a piano?
What is this? We came here to hear rock.
Rack. Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing. I'm glad that story came out. So
oh, I have very many more from that one. Anyway.
So another thing you've been doing, you mentioned this briefly. So you done was you formed a new band as well over lockdown called Healthy Living with Scott, who recorded the siphonophores song, and you mentioned the drummer as well. Was it Stefan? Stefan. So that project has released I guess it's like EP or a double A side effectively.
It's a double A side.
Called Until Below. And both those songs are quite cool. Quite again different. Obviously because you're singing on that rather than singing the piano, and obviously, and I know even the two songs are quite different. Like the second one kind of sounds kind of like, I guess like in the same sort of vein as siphonophores, and your sort of stuff is kind of like kind of mellower, and the guitar is quite pretty and it's doing like a thing. But then the song before, because I'd heard that one, and then until the other day, it was last week, I hadn't heard Until. I'd heard Below because there was a video for it and everything, but I hadn't heard Until. And I was listening to it and I was like, this is like really doomy and really like kind of quite heavy, and like, but then you hear them together, they make a lot of sense. It's like a pair. It's like a really cool like dynamic shit. It's like really intense, and then it's intense like a different way, but I like it because it's come down. It's quite a cool songs. But how did that band come about? And are there plans to like maybe do some gigs and some more material when things can happen again? Or
Yeah, so we've actually just finished an interview for Echoes and Dust where we talk about a bunch of these things in case people want to head over and read it. They're premiering the actual video for Until, which there's also a video clip for that. But yeah, basically, Scott and I have been friends for like forever. Like we met at a gig in Glasgow. We had like a shit ton of common friends. And he has a band called Falloch, and they were recording their third album. Him and Ben are in the band. Ben Brown was like also a close friend. And so, yeah, they asked me to do vocals for that. I played a couple of gigs as well with them, and we played Doom Over London ages ago. So we did that. We did that album. And yeah, from then on, we've just been like collaborating. It's kind of a bit more of like a circle, you know, of like, and yeah, he went to live in Germany like 3 years ago, and then he joined a band with Stefan on drums, and they became really, really good friends. And then yeah, Stefan, same thing with Stefan, really, like he's just been playing together. I've been doing lots of like session stuff for each other. Like they'll be like, I have a job for you. So lots of session stuff, back and forth. And it's always been like really obvious since we've been playing, like every time we played together or did stuff together, that there was like a really strong, like super effortless musical connection, you know, that it just kind of flows really naturally. Scott is like insane at like writing music. Like you just give him a guitar and I don't know, go down to the shop and come back, and he will have written like a double album or something like that. It's just like random song generator, and like the songs are super, super good. And I personally find it really easy to write stuff to them. I find them really inspiring. So yeah, I think he was in Scotland and we were jamming. And then we were like, oh, dude, we just really need I think they sent me, no, Scott and Stefan sent me a song. They sent me Until. That was the first song they ever wrote. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I recorded some vocals like in like 10 minutes. And then I sent it back. And they were like, oh, this is great. And then I spent like 5 months like working on the song to actually untangle my initial demo, to write lyrics to it and like create like, you know, a concept that kind of like made sense. And then I was in Germany in 2019, and that's where we recorded a bunch of stuff. We had been sending stuff back and forth, and yeah, and we actually have a whole album kind of written. I mean, needs quite a lot of polishing, but we have that, and Scott is also moving back here as well. So the idea is to record the album well, soon, ideally. You know, we'll have to make sure that Stefan can come as well to record drums. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
That's all actions going. That sounds quite exciting. Another question with that project B, so obviously that's where Until came from, but below in like the other songs is a lot of it kind of come from a similar way where they've written stuff and then they'll give you some things to do the vocals over, or has there been songs where there's more of the three of you working on something together, or has there been other ways that you've written the songs together, or is it more?
Yeah, some of them we've written at the same time. In general, most of them, they've been written, like the structure and the guitar and the drums have been written by Stefan and Scott, just because they were both there in Germany, living there, and they have some bands together as well, so they would just basically rehearse or play together 2-3 times a week, every week. And they would just like play stuff whenever something kind of caught on. They would demo it and then send it over. A lot of the stuff didn't catch on with me, but a lot of the stuff really did caught on. I think I made like a very horrible grammar mistake somewhere there, but yeah, anyway.
I'm sure it's fine.
So yeah, that was basically it. But then some of the songs, I actually wrote one of the songs like on guitar, and I gave it to Scott, and I was like, because initially I was gonna play bass. I was like so hyped about it. I was like, I'm gonna play bass. But then sadly for me, everybody around me is like really good at bass. So they're like, you just suck, like just give up. So I was like, okay. I mean, they didn't quite say it like that. They are really supportive friends. So yeah, it looks like so far Scott's recorded bass, and I think live what we're gonna do is I'm gonna play guitar as well. So Scott and me are gonna play guitar, and then Ben from Falloch, Ben Brown, is gonna play bass live. So that's the plan for live stuff. So it'll be 4-piece rather than a 3-piece, but we'll see.
That'll be exciting. That'll sound mega. I'm sure. Well, we have gigs again of like 2025.
we'll all be there walking in like one of these, like, how do you call them, like rolly things that
like a Zimmer frame, like
yeah.
That's totally what will be happening. But that's Scotland specific though. I mean, like, you know, gigs are happening at the moment again in England, but I don't know how long that's going to last. So
yeah, it's just quite frustrating. I was yesterday in this like video blog type of thing. Some of my friends in London, they're this collective called Chaos Theory. I've done a bunch of stuff with them as well, and they were talking about the problems facing the problems that the promoters are facing, which aren't just that like regulations or whatever, is that a lot of people actually don't want to go to gigs because they are still shielding, or they're like scared, or they're worried, or they just don't want to sit down in a gig. And it's just like the experience has been degraded and people just don't want to pay for that. So it's whether the promoter can afford, you know, to put on a gig where only 30 people are going to go, whereas before it would have been like, I don't know, 150 people, you know.
Interestingly enough, I heard a story today actually about gig stuff where my friend James, his brother played a gig in London last night, and apparently that gig was like, it was sold out ticket wise, but then apparently like only like half attended.
Oh wow,
which is strange. Like,
that's really bad.
So I guess the positive thing, I'm talking to James today about that, I guess the positive thing you want to take away from that is that, like, I think this is what his brother was saying, is that like people are wanting to support the artists, but
definitely.
His brother said, but James was saying he reckoned it was maybe more a case of like folk bought the tickets and then kind of chickened out last minute of going to the gig. And I'm with the former being the thing you want it to be, but the latter does sound more likely. I think people maybe bought a ticket and then went, I don't know if I'm sure about that, and then didn't go or something. So
yeah. I think it's like there's other ways of supporting artists than like buying a ticket and not attending the gig, because I mean, you're probably, if it does sell out, especially now with COVID situation like this, there's really very, very few spots, you know, like that this gig I played in London, it sold out, but I mean, it sold out means that there were 25 people sitting down, and then like some people were left out, you know, like that they tried to get in and it was like just not possible. And I had a couple of friends who wanted to come, and they contacted the venue, and the venue told them like it's sold out, so they didn't come. So if you buy a ticket and then don't show up in like COVID times, I think it's probably not the best way of supporting an artist.
No, definitely not. You should buy their merch.
Yeah.
So it's in this case, order from the Maud The Moth Casa. So
Casa de Moth.
Casa de Moth. So that's it. Yeah. So I was just thinking there, maybe one last thing that maybe do before we're capping off could be do something nice and positive. Could be like obviously lockdown is like, you know, and the COVID times obviously there are lots of shitty things we can say about them and stuff as well, and obviously gigs are basically it's impacted people a lot and stuff. And there's, you know, some positive things that's been good for solo acts in some ways and stuff as well. And you know, we're talking about it's been good for you're saying for your friendship with Andy and stuff, other things. So there are positives, but even though it's a terrible thing and people are dying, it's all. But anyways, I don't want to get too negative about it. But one thing I wanted to say was maybe you could list like, I don't know, something positive that's happened to you over that period in time. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like you've discovered like, I don't know, maybe there's like a really cool walk that you've never been on before that you thought that you discovered and thought, oh, that was amazing. Or maybe there's been like, I don't know, a band or that you've not had the time to check out before that you've done, or maybe there's like a book that you've discovered. Just, I don't know, just something particularly positive that's happened to you over like the last like year you can maybe like name or something. I don't know. It's quite a vague question, but I've just pulled that one out of my arse right now. So that's
there's definitely lots of really good things that have happened to me, I think, over lockdown. I mean, I don't want to like, you know, I know this like toxic positivity. Don't take me wrong. I think it's like been a pretty horrible and challenging time. And people have really, really shown the worst of them, you know, and it's like it's just been really, really tough. But personally, I feel like because probably because I didn't really have the energy, and I just kind of reached like a breaking point. I had to become really assertive and like really mindful of my own boundaries and my own limits. And that's like, I mean, that's definitely the main thing I think that has happened to me, that I've had to forcefully learn to say no to people and like communicate when I'm not okay with something. But yeah, on the more like again, not trying to get like all it got really dark again really fast. That's what happens when you let me talk. But yeah, I've been doing like, you know, probably by influence of Andy, but I always used to draw a lot when I was younger. And I've been drawing a lot. Like I actually have like this weird watercolor here that I'm kind of working on. It's like this weird swan.
That looks really cool. So like, you know, like folk will have to take my word for it that it looks cool. So.
I have, yeah, I've just been working on like, I started doing like watercolors on like about my lyrics and sending them to people. I was cool. Like asking like, hey, what's your favorite Maud The Moth song? And people would just tell me. And then I would just do a watercolor, like an abstract thing with like the lyrics written, and I would send it to them.
That's a really cool idea. That's a really cool, quite unique.
And yeah, I mean, I did it before I realized the prices, right? The Royal Mail prices for sending overseas. But
oh my God.
it was a good run while it lasted. It's like, it's okay, I can eat potatoes for the rest of the week.
Potato salad's pretty good. I had some potato salad the other day.
I've done a lot of foraging as well. I've done a lot of foraging in Arthur's Seat. I've been watching a bunch of foraging YouTube videos. I haven't died, so that's successful.
Did you pick any like wild garlic? Because there was quite a lot of that last year.
I did, and I picked wild, like it's called garlic mustard, which is the best plant ever. Like it's just so delicious. And I found like jelly ear, or like wood ear, it's called as well, in Arthur's Seat.
What's that one like? It's
like it grows on elder trees, and it looks really gross, but then you throw it in a ramen and it's like amazing, just best thing ever.
What, in ramen?
Yeah. It goes so well. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, lots of that. Lots of reading. Like Andy's given me a bunch of poetry books to read, which is great. I really like reading poetry, and in the last years I feel like my brain was completely fried, and I was like now in this forced like inaction, you know, like just nothing happened. So yeah, I feel like that's come back a bit. And I've written so much music. Like it's just because it's all I'm doing at the moment, because I just completely broke down at the end of the year last year. I was really, really not doing well. So I just stopped everything, and I would wake up and like have my usual 1 liter of coffee and then just write music. And I got this piano, and then since I got the piano, I've just been playing all the time.
That's really good. That's really good to hear. Like I love that liter of coffee. Like seems to be. If I had a liter of coffee, I probably wouldn't sleep for like 2 days or something. Like,
really? I think I've become immune to it now.
Yeah, I'm partial to a good cup of tea. That's why I like to start my day with a good cup of tea. So, but coffee is a good way to get yourself like, you know, like jet fueled for the day.
Definitely.
Yeah, so to end off, we'll play. I was going to play Below, but I think I've changed my mind actually. I think I want to play Until. I thought about this today on like my walk. I was like, maybe I want to play Until instead, because it's more range and stuff.
Cool.
So we'll play Your Eyes Are Pentagrams by Burnt Paw. Then we'll play Crown of Mice by Mothpaw, and then we'll play Until by Healthy Living, and that'll cap us off. But yeah, no, thanks for coming on this and having a lovely chat. It's been nice to sort of have more of a bother with you and stuff, and get like some fun stories into and insights into like what is Maud the Moth.
It's all very mystical, as you see. But yeah, it's been really, really great. Like just kind of like hanging out with a pal. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Next step, in person meeting.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, cool. We'll play those in we'll end.
Your eyes are pentagrams. You have attractive arms. They are known truth I cling to at night. Your eyes are pentagrams. Your eyes are pentagrams. You have a way with words. You have the second sight. You're good with animals. I am an animal under your spell. Your eyes are pentagrams. Well, here comes the Goblin King. Oh, he is the jealous kind. He's going to steal you away from me for himself. Your eyes are pentagrams. You have attractive arms. They are the last known truth that I cling to at night. Your eyes are pentagrams. Well, this is my offering. My body is yours to refuse. Tie me down to your diamond-shaped bed like a horse. Well, don't say a word in this room. There are no laws. When your eyes are pentagrams. Well, in the morning I'll call for a pizza if that's what you want. All of the neighbors are busy cutting their lawns, but I can't look away. Your eyes are pentagrams. Your eyes are pentagrams. Minotaurs war.
Okay, so thanks to everyone who tuned into or listened to that there. That was Fuzz Bat Gigs Podcast episode number 11 with our special guest, the lovely Maud The Moth, aka Amaya. I forgot to mention earlier in the podcast that if you want to check out more music from Maud The Moth, you can find her on Bandcamp, YouTube and Spotify. Or if you want to check out more music from her other projects, Healthy Living or Mothpaw, you can find Mothpaw on Bandcamp and you can find Healthy Living on both Bandcamp and YouTube. Everything that's been played by all the other artists over the course of this episode you can find on Bandcamp, YouTube and Spotify. So everyone, please stay safe, please look after yourselves and enjoy the rest of your evening. Or if you're listening to this at a different time, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers to now then, folks. Bye-bye.
Fuzz Bat Gigs.